Alright, so for today, I'm going to show you how to install Windows Server 2016 on your Mac, so a new virtual machine. And then we will install WebCenter 18.0.1, and the goal is hopefully to do this in under an hour. So first, we're going to install from a new disk image. If there's nothing on here, click Use Another Disk Image and choose to your image. So this is just the Windows Server 2016 trial. You can download it from the Microsoft website. Get 180 days. I'm going to uncheck Easy Install. Leave the boot firmware default, and let's just customize the settings for this virtual machine. So I was running only 6 gigs of RAM with WebCenter 16, and it wasn't ideal. So I'm going to change it to 8 here, and I'm also going to choose this to 2 processing cores. And then I will change my virtual hard disk to 150 gigabytes. That should be more than plenty just for test environment. Everything should be good there, and then we can begin to start the VM up. So we can make this full screen. It's going to bring up the Windows Server setup files, English, US method import. Let's click Install now. So we're going to do our standard evaluation, and we want to make sure we choose our desktop experience. So this is the GUI. Otherwise, the default option will install the command line tool. We'll just accept our options. We'll do custom install, drive 0 unallocated space. I could build this right now. So I could do my 50 megabytes. So this installing Windows should be fairly quick here. So the setup finished. Should be booting Windows now. Walk us through our setup. So we need to choose an administrator password. I'm just going to choose Drupa 2000. So now it's going to let us log in. So the first thing I'm going to do here is let that boot up. And then we're going to go virtual machine at the top, and we're going to install VMware tool. So this is just going to make sure that our VM can run properly. So it pops up here, what do you want to do with it? Let's just run the setup. I'm just going to choose the typical install. While we're doing that, I'll adjust my time zone. I believe it's correct, but just to make sure, just date and time. So I'm in Phoenix, so I'm going to choose Arizona. We'll let it set it automatically. You can also pin the server manager to the taskbar. We'll be needing that. Now the VMware tool is finished. It wants us to restart, so let's go ahead and do that. While we're waiting, we'll go to VMware Tools Setup, and I want to make sure that Use Full Resolution for Retina Display is turned off. So we should see now we get a little better resolution in the local server manager. Let's change our computer name. Get this randomly generated name at first. Open behind. Change the name. It's WebCenter 18. It's going to ask you to restart to take effect. I'm just going to click restart later because I want to change a few more settings. I'm going to turn the firewall off for the WebCenter install. I'm going to turn Windows Defender off. It uses a lot of resources. Since this is just a test environment, it's alright. I'm going to turn Internet Explorer Enhanced Security Configuration off. I will enable Remote Desktop. And I want to turn IP version 6 off, just so it doesn't conflict. Click cancel there. I'll refresh my server manager. So we should see our changes did take effect. The next one I'm going to do, I'm going to install Google Chrome. I always turn off the use recommended settings. It gets difficult to use Internet Explorer then. So download Chrome quick. So we saw that we have our C drive that was created automatically when we were installing. So I'm going to go right click on the start bar and do disk management because we want to configure a D drive. So it looks like Chrome installed. Let's just turn off our CD drive, disable it, just because I want to make a D drive, not an E drive. It should refresh. I'm going to make sure that my C drive actually is 50 gigabytes. So it's not exact, but at least we have 100 unallocated now. So I'll do new simple volume, D drive. I'm just going to call this data. We have a C drive and a D drive. Just because it's going to drive me nuts, I'm going to change the background just to a solid color. All this can be done before. So now we'll restart. So all that stuff is just basically standard stuff when configuring a new VM. You may already have a VM that's created, so you can skip all this. So I've already installed this brand new VM. I'm going to open our WebCenter latest download, so 18.0.1. And I'm going to try and follow the instruction guide, and hopefully we can get this done without any issues in less than an hour. So the first thing I know is that I need to install my database engine, and I need the .NET 3.5 as well as 4.5 framework. So I'm going to do this through our server manager. If you do click the link, it should install from there as well. So I'm going to go to add roles and responsibilities, or add roles and features. Click next, select our server. I'm going to choose .NET 3.5 and 4.6. And it's going to say some of these are missing. It's going to get them from Windows Update. And I'm just going to click Restart the destination server if required. So we'll let this install. Depending if it has to go to Windows Update, it shouldn't take too long. All right, so it finished. It doesn't give you a warning or anything. We'll just click Close. The next thing I want to do is from Add Roles and Responsibility, Roles and Features, is I'm going to install our web server, so IIS as well. So we'll select that, skip over Features, and get down to Role Services. So all these are in the instruction guide of WebCenter. So I'm just going to make sure that I have the necessary ones selected. So common HTTP features, we want to leave all of these options. Health and diagnostics, we're just going to turn on logging tools, request monitor and tracing. I'm going to turn off performance, leave security request filtering on. Under application development, turn on ASP, IS API extensions as well as filters. Then management tools, IIS6 management compatibility, as well as the scripting tools, and WMI compatibility. We'll click next. We'll let that install. Toggle this option that the server can restart if it needs to. We'll let these all install. So this is going to be required for the web server portion of WebCenter. I'm choosing to do this up front. I could do this later on in the install, but we'll just get it done right here. So while this is installing, I'm going to go back to the WebCenter installer. I'm going to install RDS-CAD Enterprise. Probably not recommended to do multiple installations at once, but I think we'll be all right in this scenario. Let's accept the license agreement. I'm just going to do typical. We'll choose advanced. Just that way I can make sure it's in the D drive. While it's installing, we can see that we do have a C drive of 50 gigabytes and D drive of 100. So I chose to split these up. You don't have to, but I like to keep things separate. All right, so IIS finished. We should see it in our tools option now. So Internet Information Services. So I'm going to go in here and just make sure a couple of things are off. So I'm going to go in and I want to choose request filtering. And then I'm going to choose edit feature settings on the right. And for maximum content allowed, I'm just going to make sure that it's on 2 gigabytes. And then under application pools, I just want to click default app pool. Advanced settings for that. And I just want to make sure enable 32-bit applications is off. It should be by default, but just in case. So our IIS server should be good to go. We'll let RDS-CAD Enterprise finish. So we can see it installed the local license manager. We can continue this. It should finish up. And then now I just want to make sure we do install the license server components. So this is the network license manager. Yes, we know the service is going to be restarted. So the network license manager finished. It doesn't make an icon for that, although it should be under recently added. And we can open the file location and send that to the desktop. Once that's at the desktop, I'm just going to right-click Run as Administrator, and we're going to activate our licenses. So I have a license file. We'll just navigate to that, activate them, type in your SQL ID. While we're waiting for that, now we can start to install our database engine. So my licenses are activated. This is just going to be SQL Express, which will work good for test environment. While we're waiting for that, also we're going to create our local BG system user. So I can see it successfully added it. Let's just verify that under computer management. So local users, BG system, and I also should see that it's in my administrators group. And we will also create our file store folder and share that with BG system. So in theory, the administrators group would work, but I'm just going to add BG system just to be sure. I'm also going to add it under the advanced. And then we're going to install SQL Server now. So it's going to be a new SQL Server. Accept the license terms. It's going to do some product updates depending on your network. It should be pretty quick. And so once the SQL Server install comes up, for features you can just leave everything selected but local DB. I'm going to let it install on the C drive, but if you wanted to install it somewhere else, you could. For named instance, this part's important. We want to change it to WebCenter here. For service accounts, SQL Server Browser, I'm going to change these to BG System. For the database engine, automatic. Account name for browser, you actually can't change it, but I'm going to change this to automatic as well. Type in Drupa 2000 there for the password. Authentication mode, we just want to make sure we do mixed mode. Specify the password for the SA account, so Drupa 2000. For SQL Administrator, I'm going to add the administrators group and BG System. Once again, these are just things I like to do. Alright, so once the SQL Server is finished installing, we should see succeeded on all of these, and we can click close this window. We want to make sure that it installed our SQL Server Management Studio. I'm just going to pin this to the taskbar because we'll need it in the future. And I also want to go to my SQL Server Configuration Manager. Under SQL Server Network Configuration, I just want to make sure that TCP/IP is enabled. Yes, apply. And I'm just going to give the server a little restart to continue on our installation. Once it's back up, we'll log in. Let's check our services. So we just want to make sure that SQL Server Web Center instance is automatic and it's BG System. Let's just make sure the password is in there. Yep, it's running, and then our SQL Server browser is automatic and also running. So now we can go in to our SQL Server Manager just to make sure we can log in there. We'll open up the installer while that opens for Web Center. So at this point, we've installed our database engine. We have SQL Server Management Installer. We installed RDOS CAD. We created BG System. We installed our Network License Manager and activate our license. We also created the file store. I'm going to select Install Web Center, so it takes just a second to open. We should be able to log in with SA and Drupa 2000. And remember my password. Maybe I typed it in wrong. Yep, typed it in wrong. Probably wouldn't remember the password on a customer's Web Center, but since this is just a test environment for myself, it's all right. So we can see we were able to log into our Web Center instance. Assuming the install goes right, it should create our database 4.0 automatically. All right, once the installer opens up, we'll accept the license agreement. We'll do a simple install, and I'm going to choose to install this feature and sub-features for both web server and application server. Let's make sure it's in DRDOS. We'll need to make sure it has our server name, not an IP address, default website for IIS. We have our shared folder, the file store, and I'm just going to retype my database password in just to make sure it's correct. And we'll run through the installer. Takes a little bit of time to get it to start moving. If you get this pop-up here, you know your install's doing good so far. It's installing or running the database update script. So it's installing all the tables and fields into the SQL Server. If you don't see this and you get an error, it's probably because the password's incorrect. So it's set on the bottom, completed successfully, so that's good. Keep the installer running. Just let it do its thing. So finish, no errors. Asks you to restart the server. We'll let it restart. All right, so let's log back in. We should see that it takes maybe a little bit longer this time to load up because the services should be starting. Let's just verify the services. It's taking a little longer. That's good. Means that things are starting up all right. Then we should have Tomcat running, JBoss, GetX, and the application server. We'll let the CPU go down a little. Open up a browser. While we're waiting for that to load, I'm going to move over my AE installer to the desktop. Alright, so we got an error, can't connect to the application server. We're just going to wait a little bit longer for things to start up. Alright, so I waited just a little bit longer after that error. Looked like not all Web Center was up all the way. Now I get the login page. I'm going to use admin as the username, no password by default. It should ask me here to set an admin password. So I'm just going to make it Drupa 2000, same as everything else. And now I can see that it installed Web Center. Let's just run our system check or the troubleshooting tool. So overall, should get everything except for the view file generation. Don't have PCM licenses. So that overall is the basic install of Web Center. I should be able to complete this on a new VM in about an hour. Now I'm going to go on to install our OBGE to generate the thumbnails. So the onboard graphics engine, it's the Lite AE. So I have the automation engine installer. I go to software install, and I want to use the install with existing SQL Server or Web Center OBGE option. Just run the readiness check just to make sure it meets the requirements. I don't need to install the license server components because they've already completed, but I will do the prerequisites. Just make sure everything's installed. When it asks about CADX components, select no for both of these, and then it should say exit. So now it should be good to install AE18. Just going to run the check again. Continue. Accept. You can just install all this. Now I'm going to make sure I switch to my D drive. It says my C drive is full. Just some bunch of temporary files there in SQL Server, I believe. So let's install this. While I'm doing this, I'm just going to test WebCenter again. See, it's getting a little faster now that it's been running for longer. Let's just try to create a project. All looks good here. I was able to upload a project. Let's make a new folder. We're going to let AE finish installing. So once that's installed, I'm going to go back into my services and change my BGMD to delayed start. I'm also going to chart my EG web server to delayed start, just so these don't conflict with WebCenter when the server restarts. So now this is finished. I can just double click on this client apps link on the desktop. Wants me to create an admin automation engine account. So we'll just do admin across the board. We'll do Drupal 2000. So it needs to create the databases, so SA and Drupal 2000 as well. It just wants to know where to put them, so I'm going to store them in the default folder. It's going to create the AE databases, and it just wants to restart the server. While that's happening, I'll download the pilot. I can also delete the ISO while we're waiting. So it says it's being used. Just gotta eject it. Now I can remove it. Pilot's finished installing. I'm gonna delete the shuttle icon. We don't need that. Open up the pilot, delete the client apps link. So we just need to create an access point now and add a container. Just add the file store. Make sure I can see the JDF folder. So now I can add an access point. Let's call it a Web Center JDF in. I'm on the in folder every 1 minute. Process JDF. We'll move it to hot folder out. And hot folder out. So now let's try to upload some PDFs. I can also connect my AE workflow connection. The folder or the URL. I gotta fix the launch workflows. Let's just we'll just upload all the user docs. So I can see it's starting to prepare to view my files. These may take a little bit because they're multi-page. Should have chose a actual graphic file. These have a lot of pages to them. Alright, we can see here that one of our files should be previewed, so let's refresh our page. Alright, so we got this one. Let's open the viewer, just make sure it works. Definitely not the most realistic PDF. Should have uploaded a graphic file. Alright, our viewer opens successfully. And there we have it. So installing a new VM with Windows Server 16, fresh install of WebCenter 18.01, and installing the OBGE all on a test environment on your virtual machine.